Hello, Earth Cubs. There is a lot of esoteric information freely available out there that divulges the steps, methods, and processes of what is commonly known as awakening. While so much of this is truly wonderful, supporting and guiding the opening of our beings into larger, more loving living, much of it also leaves significant space for confusion and can feel overwhelming. Because while one might be able to truly feel the beauty and even the truth of these words and teachings, in the moment of receiving them, actually embodying the experience in a sustainable, enduring form is most often much harder. One of the main reasons for this, I find, is the language that is used to describe aspects of consciousness and the human experience. A lot of the same terminology is repeated, albeit slightly altered, and always pointing to the same thing ultimately, and yet we may feel no closer in reality to that state that we yearn to be in. For example, when we hear that we are not the mind and not the body, we are pure consciousness, it is difficult to make sense of that because of how we've related to our mind and body for thousands of years. Then we are told that we obviously cannot understand this through the human left brain mind. It must be experienced to be truly realized, which is absolutely true. But again, gaining entrance into the subconscious mind or activating right brain intelligence, which is a prerequisite to such experiences and realizations, is also not as easy as we'd like. It is easier for some than for others, which is dependent on the strength of the barrier between the conscious and subconscious mind individually. This and more is seen in the natal chart, as I'll get into later. So we may practice meditation, mindful movements such as yoga, qigong, breathing exercises, visualization, fertile solitude, spending time in nature, and whatever else strengthens the kind of quiet awareness that would facilitate the embodiment of pure consciousness. And while these beautiful practices do have an influence on our overall well-being, we may still find our minds returning to grinding and churning in the ongoing attempt at achieving a truly lasting, sweet inner peace. This is because no matter what we do, if we're still relating to ourselves as selves, we may improve certain aspects of that so-called self, but as a whole, we remain much the same. Our manifested experience may remain largely unaltered as long as we function under the old paradigm of a single self in the world trying to make it. So what I mean by this is what I'm going to share with you. I find the best and easiest way to understand consciousness and our roles as humans with the mind and body is through the lens of a cosmic game. Again, be mindful that language can become an obstacle when word association impacts perception of any message. The word game is not intended here to indicate that life is something trifling, but to indicate that engaging with life playfully is the purpose of consciousness in all its forms, because play is creation and creation is love. Now, I don't want to go on a tangent about consciousness and the fabric of the universe. There are more than enough sources on that available. But for the sake of context, everything is energy, either formless or formed. All matter, which is dense energy, is born out of invisible, formless energy. This formless energy is what is referred to as pure consciousness and is what animates or sustains all that which does have form. It is called pure because it has no boundaries. It is simply unlimited potential, and it is made of love for love. Its principle is for creation. So it does just that. It creates and experiences everything it creates, just for the sake of experiencing creation. There is no imperfection in energy in this form. It is magical, blissful, and peaceful. It seeks no harm. It fears nothing, and it differentiates between nothing. And that is what we are, even though it is difficult to reconcile this in feeling. We can understand this theoretically, but to truly accept that what we are is that pure, perfect, infinitely powerful energy is a tall order. So therefore, I think it best to begin instead with understanding one of its most marvelous creations, the human, with a marvelous mind, a marvelous body, and even more marvelous heart. I'm sure most of you have heard or read a good deal by now on the false self and the higher or true self, the ego and the soul, the mind and body and pure consciousness or awareness. But when we conceptualize life like this, splitting the self by dividing thoughts, emotions, reactions, basically life, into higher and lower states, this only sustains the separative way of thinking and operating, which is what we're trying to eliminate in the first place, and defeats the purpose of experiencing the purported goal of oneness or unity consciousness. Unity consciousness refers to that state of pure being, pure energy in its free, formless, endlessly loving state, which is the very opposite of what most of us are living day to day. So I'd like to emphasize the relationship between pure consciousness and the human form, not as one versus the other, but as one animating the other, one releasing the other. Conscious energy animates the mind and body, giving rise to character and characteristics. And this character releases and embodies the energy that consciousness then experiences. The reason this idea is very helpful to integrate is because once we do, we're free from a state of needing to overcome something. We can release the striving to become or experience something that we believe is difficult to do because of a false notion of distance or a gap between what we currently are experiencing and what we would like to experience. So when pure conscious energy is infused into the constraints of a mind and body, it takes a shape, a color, a flavor, a personality. It is meant to. This is not negation of energy. This is not injury to energy. This is meant to happen so that consciousness can play with itself. Otherwise, being simply limitlessly blissful eternally sounds pretty boring. When what is meant to be playful and creative became about force and fear is when the game went awry, and when this journey of unlearning, relearning, and healing becomes inevitable before we can get back to the state of play. So originally this human character is a toy. The mind and body are toys which consciousness is playing through, playing with. How sweet. That is so adorable, except when we look around at the world, adorable isn't what comes to mind. Well, let's make it so. We have to. And that's my objective, basically. The quickest and simplest way for us to get rid of notions that prevent us from being what we really are and what we can be, by reframing lofty concepts into practical and comprehensible methods to work with immediately, returning to loving play as soon as possible. This character is literally like in a video game or simulation, because everything humans create are mini imitations of larger reality already in play. So in these games, you, the player, choose its avatar, its persona, its agenda, its hero's journey. In the cosmic game, you as consciousness do the same. You choose a role you play out, and this character is what is seen and understood in the natal chart. Several characters really put together to form one large entity unit, which requires the skills and attributes of all of them for the full experience that has been chosen. These are all the planets, asteroids, and signs doing their own thing together, like in a play, much like what's known in psychology as internal family systems. So this avatar has a purpose, and any nihilistic approach to the human experience defeats the intention of consciousness, your intention, that is, which is to experience humanness. So honor the character. Honor it as a glorious conduit through which consciousness, you, are flowing in a very particular, entirely unique manner. No two characters are the same, can ever be the same, and that's stunning. Each character or avatar is like a multi-layered filter for energy, and these filters determine what the input and output of energy looks like, feels like, acts like. Now this is important. Energy in its original form is always absolutely perfect. Its intention is always loving and life-giving, life-sustaining, life-transforming. It is active, dynamic, full of possibility. A character, or this magical filter, this conduit, is constantly in reception of this pure, perfect, limitless energy. But what happens as this energy passes through the filters is what determines the experience of the energy received and the energy offered back out by the avatar. This energy passing through and changing from its unformed state takes the form of every thought, feeling, action, inaction, physiological and pathological condition, every creative or destructive endeavor known to humankind. The natal chart describes these tendencies or patterns with great clarity and precision, as it illuminates the form and function of this conduit or these filters of the avatar. More importantly, however, the chart shows the potential for the best quality of energy expressed and experienced, as well as the most distorted version of the energy. Most of us are swinging somewhere between the two. The quality of the energy is dependent on the structure and condition of the filters. This is what yields the resultant experience. So our job is to keep the filters clean in tip-top form, so that all passing energy is expressed, released, and experienced beautifully. This is the point of all lifestyle practices that detox, nourish, strengthen, and refine. It is just for the sake of the quality of energy that gets passed through the filters, the conduits. It is not for the sake of the avatar to feel good about itself. Also, these filters aren't plastic or metal. They are mutable, moldable, shapeable, according to what is evolutionarily natural for consciousness to experience. For you, for your formless, playful, loving energy to experience. Not for the character, not for the mind and body that you are animating and has a name, face, family, gender, nationality, and what it thinks are its personal preferences, but for you as energy that can be anything, but here and now are embodying the human form. As long as this is remembered, as long as the character does not mistake itself for the player, all is well. But this was forgotten long ago. The character became conceptually, not in reality, but conceptually cut off from pure consciousness and assumed itself to be the experience, instead of what it really is, a conduit which facilitates experience. Without access to pure potential, pure love, pure life, now the mind and body of the character are extremely limited and deeply pained. Hence all the symptoms of a suffering world in myriad ways. Imagine that happening in a video game. The avatar thinks its experiences are its own, feels shame and guilt for failing levels, holds on to memories of everything, and takes way too long to cry it out and move on, as it now is a container of all past unpleasantness, pacing around all the time, or in constant conversation with itself or another character, because now it's unsure it can actually do and have what it is already made to do and have. It thinks it is operating all on its own and feels lonely, weak, and unworthy, unless it's winning, invalidating company, or receiving some form of reward or flattery. It has now completely lost its most substantial quality, which is being present in the here and now. That presence is what keeps the game going and flowing, what keeps the avatar dynamic and ever evolving. Conscious energy needs to be able to flow freely. When it does, everything is harmonious. It is natural. When there's any kind of attachment, that literally, physically means constriction, tightness, stuckness, and energy cannot flow how and where and when it needs to. So if the character gets attached to its character, and then wonders why things aren't lovely, why it isn't enveloped in loveliness, it's because the energy that created and animated the character no longer has access to it. The supply system in the energy field is closed off. The field being us as consciousness and everything we are connected to as formless energy, which is everything. That is what manifestation is all about. Communicating through the mind of the avatar to the energy field, which is us, that which holds the potential for anything. But each avatar's desires are unique to itself and only wants and needs certain experiences for its fulfillment in the game. as seen by the shape and function of its filters in the natal chart. And the field of unlimited possibility, which we are, is able to provide each individual avatar with everything it desires. When we are able to identify as this field, this energy field, and not the character, the avatar anymore, then we're back in play. So this avatar isn't the problem. The mind and body of this avatar are not the problem either. This is an amazing game that we as conscious energy get to play through genius minds and bodies. And in reality, we can be all sorts of gorgeous things through this character. But once the character forgets about where its source of life comes from and believes itself to be the end all of everything, then we're in trouble. This is where astrology is simply a fabulous tool to understanding the cosmic game and how to play it. Your natal chart gives you the quickest access to subconscious beliefs, hidden trauma, past patterns, all of which tether you to an old and uncreative way of experiencing life, and a profound understanding of how you sustain your limitations, mentally, emotionally, physically, and spiritually, which translates to how limited your experiences are in work, romance, finance, health, social life, business, creativity, in joy, in everything. It shows how and why you are stuck in the matrix. It also shows you how to escape it, which I'll talk about in my next video. Now, the escape, or really the return to your true nature of pure, beautiful, powerful, playful consciousness, is the unity point of the polarities in the chart. There are 12 houses and 12 signs on axes, and when we use our placements, elements, and aspects to understand how to find harmonious balance within it all, that is when the avatar is functioning at its most joyous power. That is when it is lovingly playing with you, us, consciousness, and we are enjoying the human experience as we intended.